welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Steve Van Eiderstein. Thank y'all for joining me again tonight as we go through and we do today's daily reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations. This, of course, will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning that you'll get my genuine response, reactions, observations, and what I relate to about the reading. As this will be the first time that I hear it or read it right here on this podcast with y'all. So let's go ahead and we'll get into November 3rd's reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations. Know this, thou makest and unmakest thyself. I like that. Doubt, anxiety, and worry are unsubstantial shades in the underworld of the self, and shall no more trouble him who will climb the serene altitudes of soul. Grief also will be forever dispelled by him who will comprehend the law of his being. He who comprehends shall find the supreme law of life, and he shall find that it is love, that it is imperishable love. He shall become one with love, and loving all, with mind freed from all hatred and folly, he shall receive the invincible protection which love affords. Claiming nothing, he shall suffer no loss. Seeking no pleasure, he shall find no grief. And employing all his powers as instruments of service, he shall evermore live in the highest state of blessedness and bliss. Thou art a slave, if thou preferest to be. Thou art a master, if thou will make thyself one. Well, I love this one because it's putting the responsibility on us and the accountability on us. I think that's one of the main things that James Allen does. He and I agree with him. And it's been my experience that I am responsible for everything about myself. So this opening line here, I really, really like this. Know this, thou makest and unmakest thyself. It's on you. If your life's falling apart around you, and usually you have something to do with it. If your life's pulling together and moving in the right direction, you probably have something to do with it, right? So it's the way we think about things. It's the way we take action. It's what we actually do. We makest and unmakest thyself, which is amazing. And it's a powerful thing to understand and grasp onto, but it's also terrifying and a little disheartening to understand that I'm responsible for absolutely every condition there is in my life. Because that means if I am responsible for it, I have to do something about it. And I can't blame anymore. I have to take some accountability for at least my side in some of these things that have happened and move forward. So that's not always the most fun thing to do, and people don't necessarily enjoy doing that themselves, that's for sure. So, doubt, anxiety, and worry are unsubstantial shades in the underworld of self, and shall no more trouble him who will climb the serene altitudes of his soul. Doubt, anxiety, worry are unsubstantial shades in the underworld of self. So these are the things we bring upon ourselves. These are the things that we allow to cause ourselves pain. And it's all things we bring upon ourselves. It's all reasons. It's all conditions that we have created for us. But shall no more trouble him who will climb the serene altitudes of his soul. So when you go through this purification process, when you actually start to do this work and start to gain the perspective that this type of living has to offer, and you detach from this material world in the sense of needing it to bring you that joy and happiness and contentment, when you can actually detach from that, you'll get some amazing results. You'll get a peace and serenity you didn't even know was possible. At least that's been my experience. Fear and anxieties really have gone to the wayside for the most part. They still spring up, and that means I've got something to do, some work to do on that, of course. But for the most part, all the anxieties and projection and the doubts that I used to have resolved themselves just by living right, living well. It's kind of amazing how much of an impact that can have, I guess. How much my lack of belief in my own ability to do something really caused a lot of anxieties. And how bringing a God into my life and spirituality into my life brought me a strength I didn't comprehend. Grief also will be forever dispelled by him who will comprehend the law of his being. This is a hard one. This is a this is quite a difficult one in my opinion. But I've had a lot of direct experience with grief. I mean, the part of the human condition of us is that we lose people, and we lose relationships, we lose our circumstances. So grief is a reality we have to face. And the hardest thing about grief, and this will ruffle some feathers, is grief is selfish. And grief is a self serving emotion. Grief occurs because we believe somebody should still be in our lives because we desire it. Grief is born of desire for a now impossibility. We grieve because our version of the future is now destroyed. We grieve because these projections we've become attached to will no longer be. It's a selfish thing, self centered thing in the least, which we all have to go through at some point. And some of them will be able to process grief and get to a place with it that's much more accepting and loving and understanding than others. Some people get stuck in it and get resentful because of it. And it can be a destroyer of lives and worlds. It really can be. And when you understand this and you actually go through this spiritual trek of removing desires and removing your own opinions, when you can remove your own opinions on things and then remove your attachment to the self you have, the grief goes along with it. The grief seems to dissipate when we are able to do that. He who so comprehends shall find the supreme law of life, and he shall find that it is love, that it is imperishable love. It's funny to just talk about this. It's almost corny and stereotypical and laughable in some circles to say things like this now. It's all love, it's all love, it's all love. But it's true. These are the things that get the most ridiculed that are true, and and it's constantly been this. Constantly been discovered as this. It's constantly been grown into this idea that love is the supreme and overlaying law of this world, and our defiance and and our serving of ourselves leads us away from it. But when you start living this way of life, when you start following these spiritual principles, these spiritual values, and you walk forward in life and practice this, make a commitment to practice these things and grow in these things, you'll become more and more aware that love is the root of all growth and positive in this world. Ye shall become one with love, and loving all, with mind freed from all hatred and folly, he shall receive the invincible protection which love affords. Because when you actually gain the perspective of having a loving eye, having understanding and compassion towards your fellow man, it makes a whole heck of a lot of difference. It really does. And then you can be free. You can be free from the aggressions of others and free from your own judgments. You can be able to let these things go and live in a state of peace and love instead of taking things personally, instead of believing people are out to get you and be evil. You can see from a perspective of empathy and love that they are just who they are, and the world is just what the world is. There's so much freedom or invincibility, the invincible protection which love affords. It gives us the ability to hold on to our own peace, which is just amazing. Claiming nothing, he shall suffer no loss. If nothing's mine, I will feel no loss. Seeking no pleasure, he shall find no grief. Pleasure. If I'm not desiring these things that make me feel good about myself and that I use to validate myself, that I use to for my own personal motives, I will have no more grief. My selfishness, the root of my grief is selfishness. So cure the selfishness. And employing all his powers as instruments of service, he shall evermore live in the highest state of blessedness and bliss. That's the ultimate goal of this, isn't it? At least that's been my experience, is to be of genuine love and service to other people and to the God of your understanding. It's it's so simple, yet so difficult for someone like me to actually get that understanding, to actually be able to grow in that knowledge and love, and to be able to be willing to be of service to somebody else. It's not easy for a guy like me to do that and to learn to do that and be happy to do that. But the more I do it, the more I live in a state of blessedness and bliss. That has been my exact experience. The most joy I have ever felt is to be of service to somebody else. That's where contentment comes from. And I didn't know it was just always right there in front of me. All right, now this ends with a very powerful line. Thou art a slave if thou preferest to be. Thou art a master if thou wilt make thyself one. Goes right along with that first line. Know this, thou might makest and unmakest thyself. So if you, this might, people aren't going to like this, but I do believe in it. Thou art a slave if thou preferest to be. Whether you know you're preferring to be or not, that might be a subject of discussion. But choosing to be a slave to your emotions, choosing to be a slave to your fears, that's always on us. And we leave ourselves in that position. And we can be a master if we would just make ourselves one. It takes effort, it takes work, it takes action. Never forget this is about action. You can comprehend and think all you want, but until the action is taken, you'll not move. You'll stay exactly where you are. So, all right. Well, thank y'all for joining me again for November 3rd's reading. James Allen's Meditations. November is starting to take a good turn that I like. It after October, October was so powerful that November has gotten off to a little bit slower start for my own liking. So I'm excited to see where it can go, though. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow's. So until next time, thanks.